Good afternoon, good day, everyone. James Hicks here from Hicks New Media. Welcome to the latest edition of Perspectives in Focus, where we focus on the people, the industries, and the technology that are making positive strides within society today. My guest today is Heather MacCleoud. Heather is the founder and CEO of the Asherah Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization that provides scholarships and support to women pursuing higher education around the world. She started the foundation to advocate for women who, for whatever reason, started and didn't finish or haven't been afforded equal opportunity to education. Part of the foundation's mission statement speaks to that belief that post-secondary education provides women with the tools and resources to create change within their communities and advance gender and social equality. With that, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Heather MacCleoud. Heather, how are you doing today?
It's a pleasure to be here with you, James.
Thank you
Happy
very much.
Friday.
It is Friday. It is Friday, and we will celebrate. Well, we're always celebrating, but we will get a little bit more into that in a couple of hours. I'd say before we get started in kind of the line of questioning, I'd like to have you dive a little bit deeper into who you are and what the foundation is, and kind of talk a little bit about the origin story as well, because I think when we were talking about it a few weeks ago, that really resonated with me, and I think that definitely that story needs to be shared.
Well, it all started a long time ago in 2016. In 2016, you may recall there were stories all over the news about the Syrian refugee crisis and just the tragedy that was unfolding there and the choices that people had to make in fleeing their homes and their communities and their cities. And in those stories, two emerging trends kind of stood out to me and some of my colleagues at the time. One was that those fleeing the Syrian refugee crisis were having tremendous difficulties accessing higher education, which historically, in terms of discourses about refugees' access to higher education, has not really been a part of those stories. The issues have been much more focused on literacy and access to basic primary school, for example. But in this case, access to colleges and universities was actually becoming a very big deal and a very big problem for these Syrians who were having been forced from their homes. And then alongside that, we started hearing about women who suddenly found themselves becoming the heads of their household. For whatever reason, they had been forced to flee, and their male providers, their husbands, their fathers, their brothers had either been sent somewhere else or been killed. But regardless, these women found themselves suddenly needing to provide financially for their families for the first time without the experience or credentials to get appropriate employment to do that. And so as we learned more about the situation, we learned several things. The first is that these trends we were observing were actually global trends across the world. Women were increasingly finding themselves becoming heads of their households, meaning that they had sole financial responsibility for their family. Sometimes that's their children, sometimes it's their extended family as well. But regardless, they were being put into these situations without the experience or credentials to get the types of employment they needed. And the second trend was that around the world, as education levels have been increasing, which is wonderful, that also means, though, that access to higher levels of education is becoming increasingly important in order to survive in this new world we're in. And so these people fleeing the Syrian conflict were not the only ones struggling to access higher education. It's a global phenomenon. We see it here in the United States, but it's, as you can imagine, much harder other places in the world where there is ongoing conflict or less developed, less robust economies, for example.
Right.
So as we realized these two trends were global, and they actually, of course, intersected, that there are these women needing access to higher ed to get jobs, to support their families, that they were suddenly in charge of. Nobody was doing anything about it. This was 2016, and the United Nations had published its new global goals, the Sustainable Development Goals, in 2015. The first report came out at the end of 2016, and these women were nowhere in there.
Wow.
There was a lot of great data about like access for kids to primary school, which is very important. A lot of information, a lot of reporting, a lot of funds given to girls accessing, again, primary, secondary education. But women, those with children, those with family responsibilities, financial responsibilities, were nowhere in there. If they had the traditional age, I'm putting that in quotes, for access to higher education is 24. If you are 24 years old or above, you are considered non-traditional, and around the world globally, you disappear in terms of the data that's collected and reported. Because
Okay.
at that point, the assumption is made that you're an adult. It's now the focus is on your children. Get your children access to school, which is important. But the thing is that the more access to education a woman has, the easier it will be for her own children to access education. So if you're worried about kids getting access to education, you need to start with your mothers first. And
Wow. I love
so
that.
no one was reporting on this. No one was thought it was worth even collecting data on. Obviously, there is no funding or support available. There's a lot of scholarships out there, a lot of funding out there for high achieving young people and girls, which is amazing. But again, once a woman ages out of the traditional higher education age
Mm.
range, she just suddenly becomes unattractive to those who would usually provide funding and support. So once we realized that these trends were global and intersecting and that nobody was doing anything about it, as a woman over the age of 24 who had access to higher education, myself and my colleagues decided that somebody needed to do something about that. And we realized we couldn't solve this global issue overnight, but we knew we could do something small, maybe symbolic, and we decided to see if we could offer a scholarship. So we created the Asherah Foundation as the entity to provide that scholarship through. And we reached across to our colleagues in higher education around the world and let them know we were offering the scholarship. And we held an open application process open to women 24 years or older who were accessing higher education for either the second time or for the first time, but with a delay because for some reason they'd had barriers or challenges. And so we were able to, in 2016, identify two amazing women and provide them scholarships.
Awesome.
And so with that, we had a proof of concept, and we're able to, over the next couple of years, raise more funds, raise awareness of this issue, which I think is a very important and exciting thing to see that people are becoming aware of this. And we are now at a place where we have, over the years, received applications from women in over 60 countries. We have board members and interns from over 20 countries who have
Amazing.
dedicated an insane amount of time and energy to support this effort. And so that's how we got started.
I love that, and I appreciate you for going into detail because there was a couple of questions that I was going to ask, but you went into them, and one specifically about the age, right? Because I saw the 24-year-old, and I was really trying to understand what that meant. So I appreciate you going into specifics about that, and you started to touch on it, but I wanna pick at it just a little bit more. This is a real challenge, opportunity, problem, whatever word we want to use, and how do you sitting in your living room one Wednesday night, maybe, right, and say, we want to work to tackle this. Right? Where do you even start, right? You go get the legal pad from Staples and you write down all of the goals and milestones and plans and ideas. I mean, how do you wrap your head around, I'm going to go out there and as you said, and I'll paraphrase my old boss, make a dent in the universe here. Right. And I
I
don't know if
love
you know
that.
who
I love
said
that.
that, but Steve Jobs.
Okay.
So
That
yeah,
makes
Steve.
sense.
Yeah, just make that dent in the universe, and how do you start with that conversation amongst yourselves, and then go out to some colleagues and peers to say, we're going to start this foundation, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Why? Because it matters.
Well, I think the first thing is one, become aware of the issue. And once you're aware of the issue, you can, of course, do research, see who is addressing this, if anyone is, and then just start where you can. With myself and my co founders, it was simply we had received scholarships ourselves, so we knew the impact they could have. We all worked in the international higher education space, so we had a good familiarity of the sector and the institutions and the policies and all that goes along with that. So we understood, in some ways, the market, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And giving a scholarship is a relatively simple thing to do. And it is something that is simple to do, but has tremendous impact emotionally and psychologically, and many ways symbolically.
I know you've closed the year out, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
November already, and scholarships aren't getting ready to be accepted for next year and things of that. Starting in 2016, the world was a different place than it is
Yes.
right now. Obviously, challenges and opportunities and struggles. Right, when you started, again, getting your feet off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
What has the last 15, 16 months done to your activities and your efforts? Has it kind of stalled it? Has it just made you pivot, change focus, and things of that nature? Or has there been any change in terms of what your foundation is doing? Because again, you can work virtually. We can all be distributed, things of that. But I'm just wondering, just the outreach to women who are looking for your scholarships and your programs. Has that changed anything?
So everything has changed and nothing has changed. We are still very focused on our very singular mission, which is to provide second chance scholarships to women around the world. But in some ways, COVID made it much harder because everyone we were working with, our board members, our interns, were each facing their own crises related to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
The women we had provided scholarships to for the 2019-2020 academic year all had their education stopped. Um, in some cases, those who were, going to school for the 2019-2020 academic year had their academic year delayed by a full year, meaning
Okay.
that they finished spring semester 2020 in spring of 2021, which is a significant
Wow.
delay. Um, but on the other hand, it's, of course, energized everyone involved. I think with COVID, the world became much more aware of challenges and access to education, broadly speaking. Women and girls across the board, across the world, were impacted much more dramatically and negatively by COVID. There was a very clear gender differential that people became more aware of. And so I think the increased awareness and the struggles we were all going through kind of united us around the need to do this work even more. Um,
Got you.
just
Let me ask you this, and you live in a town right now, right? The town that you
Mhm.
live in is very active,
Mhm.
from and rightfully so. Does that political landscape how does that fit in, right? Do you have
Mhm.
to knock down walls, knock down barriers, cut through red tape, right? And just to get your
Mhm.
message out, at being in Washington D.C. and being in that area, is that are there more pros than cons, benefits as opposed to consequences and things of that working in such a political arena and area and
Mhm.
trying to do the good work that you're doing?
Overall, I think it's actually a net plus for us.
Okay.
Washington, D.C. attracts people who are very passionate about making change,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that change is. Um, there's a great appreciation for education in
Mm-hmm.
Washington, D.C. And so I think from that perspective, it's very easy for us to find people who understand our mission both personally and professionally and can really help us run with it. From a very pragmatic perspective, Washington, D.C. is home to institutions like the World Bank, which has focused tremendous time and resources on promoting access to education around the world. And they've developed a tremendous amount of data about the situation in different parts of the world and how it impacts different people. And so having that connection right in our backyard literally has provided us access to people who both really understand our goal intellectually, but also have a very deep emotional, psychological appreciation for it. And then the second way in which I think it's beneficial is that we are a short bus or train ride away from New York City. And that has given us the opportunity to attend events in New York City connected with the United Nations and the UN, and to engage face to face with people working on these issues around the world.
Amazing. Love it. Let's talk a little bit about the scholarships. And I've got the policies and requirements on my screen, and I'll put them on the screen for everyone to see as well. But I don't want to make assumptions, right? And I want to ask, are there specific disciplines, industries, focuses of study that you require? I know you have that age 24 requirement and things of that nature because of all the reasons that you meant. But can any woman on anywhere on this planet who wants to go to that post secondary schooling apply?
Yes, they can.
Amazing.
We do not have any geographic focus or uh, subject area focus. One of the things we have learned over the years, and that research significantly supports, is that women, especially older women, have a very good idea of what will actually help them. And so we respect the choices they have made in which institutions they want to attend, what degree they want to get, and what subject area they want to focus in. If they believe it is in their best interest to do this, and they can articulate to us why that is and how it will help them and their families and their communities, we respect that and reward that.
And looking at the requirements, right, for the
Mm-hmm.
application and to be awarded it really kind of speaks to exactly what you said. Just put the effort in to say you want to go to school. You don't have to have the curved weighted 4.5 GPA. You just got to go. You got to show up and actually do some work.
Mm-hmm.
Want to learn, want to study, want to be better for you and yourself, and go minimum of 9 credit hours per semester. So part
Mm-hmm.
time, right? But
Mm-hmm.
walk in the door, walk into class, and pay attention. And we have a
Yes.
scholarship that's specifically for you. I love just that level of requirement, right? Again, because
Mm-hmm.
I think that opens the door, in my opinion, third person looking in, right? Opens the door
Right.
for many more folks to turn in that application and say,
Yes.
here is an opportunity for me as I try to better myself, better my
Mm-hmm.
family, better my situation. So, since 2016, when you started, is there
Mm-hmm.
a number that's publicly available that you can share in terms of how many scholarships that you've given thus far?
Yes, we have awarded scholarships to 9 women so far over
Amazing.
15 semesters. We are hoping to dramatically increase that over the coming years. I think the first couple of years were about us, really developing a proof of concept. It's one thing to give out a scholarship one year, but is there a way to sustain that giving?
Mm,
And as these women go through their programs, most of these are not one-year programs. So how do we continue to support them throughout the rest of their program while maintaining the ability to provide scholarships to other women, to continue to raise funds, etc.
Well, I tell you what, in the last month since you and I have been talking,
Mm-hmm.
I've made this one change right here in terms. Look, I buy something from Amazon every single day. I'm surprised the door hasn't rang while we're talking right now. But utilizing
Mm-hmm.
Amazon Smile,
Mm-hmm.
it, folks, we as the consumer, we as people within industry and within the society, if this is something that resonates with you in any kind of way, very simply, just change the donation, the charity that you're giving to when you're going out there and buying your goods and services from someone like an Amazon anyway. So I went and made the change, and you got a couple of nickels coming from me and from
Good.
the Hicks household. But again,
Yeah.
there are ways to make a change and way to make an impact, and there are no excuses. And I'm actually talking to the consumers and everyone listening and watching right
Mm-hmm.
now. I will sign up as well for this Give Hero exercise for education. Hopefully, my
Mm-hmm.
numbers will resonate and actually make a difference. But
They do.
again, these types of things right here are very
Mm-hmm.
easy, right? In terms of what we
Mm-hmm.
can do. If this is a message again that resonates with folks within the community, how can I make a difference? How can I provide some financial backing? Just change the
Mm-hmm.
charity that you're giving to when you go out there and buy your stuff from Amazon anyway, and it goes to the foundation. So I definitely wanted to put that out there and make that
Mm-hmm.
known. What's next, right? Again, we're now at the end of the year. You're probably strategizing, planning for 2022,
Mm-hmm.
as we're starting to come out of lockdown, as we're starting to get back out into the world and things of that nature. Are
Mm-hmm.
there sessions, boot camps, workshops, whatever the case may be, that you and your organization and your foundation are doing to do more and more in terms of getting the word out?
Right now, I think our biggest focus will be on Giving Tuesday, which is November 30th. Giving Tuesday was a concept developed many years ago now, actually, in response to Black Friday, then Cyber Monday. And then people realize there's this, whole period of consumption. What about a period of giving? So Giving Tuesday was created as a response to that, and it is the Tuesday after Thanksgiving in the United States, and it is focused on giving. And it has become the biggest day around the globe for philanthropic giving. So we will be focusing on raising awareness of that. But just in general, to continue our mission of reaching out to women who might be eligible for a scholarship, raising awareness, raising funds, bringing on new board members, interns, advisory members, supporters, and really just continuing to do what we do.
Fantastic. There is meaning behind everything, and I want to have you share the meaning of the name of the foundation, Asherah, because I don't want to assume, and I don't want to gloss over that, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
such an incredible thing, and I definitely want the audience to hear about that. So if you could go into what that actually means.
Sure. So Asherah was a female goddess, an ancient Mesopotamian female goddess. Not much is known about her, but in general, one of her descriptors was she who walks on the sea, meaning that this was a deity that was able to walk on water. As we One of the reasons we connected with that was because with the Syrian refugee crisis, there were all these images of people being forcibly displaced and set adrift on the Mediterranean Sea and being stuck out on the ocean, and just the perilousness of that journey. And Syria is around where ancient Mesopotamia was, so it just seemed fitting on so many levels to have this female deity who was able to walk over the rough oceans of life as our kind of who we are. So that's the story.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. Excuse me. Let me ask you one last question, and I'd be remiss if I didn't, because I'm a technologist at heart, so I got to
Yeah.
ask a technology question. Your favorite piece of technology? What is it that you have that you can't live or can't do without?
I would say Zoom.
Zoom. Wait a minute. Hold on. Zoom. So now we're going to change the whole focus of the conversation. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, because you're on it for hours of a day, probably. Okay.
Right. We have been 100%
No one has
virtual
ever
from
told me
day
Zoom
one.
that something that they like as their favorite piece of technology. So I that's why you threw. I had to go
We
off
would
camera.
not exist without we would not exist without Zoom or
Okay.
technology like Zoom.
I love that. Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, and cross collaboration and a lot of things that they've added into the platform. That's a pretty good thing. Okay, so you threw me for a loop. Look, I normally am not stumped for words, but Zoom. Okay,
It is really foundational to our existence, in all honesty.
it's all good. I'm giving you a hard time just because that's what I do. Heather, I appreciate you. I think above that, I appreciate what you're doing. Right, the foundation is phenomenal. I wanted to hear your story, and a colleague of ours told me that I needed to reach out to you, and I'm glad that I did. And I'm continuing to want to watch this journey, and wanting to participate and support and help where in every way that I can. I like the fact that you have been known to quote Nelson Mandela: "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." That resonates, and that just means a lot. So I want to say thank you for you. I want to say thank you for the Asherah Foundation and everything that you're continuing to do. And tell us real quickly before we go where we can find you and the information that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I will include all of the links within the show
Mm-hmm.
description so folks can follow as well. But I'd also want to hear it from you as well.
Um, Basic information about the Asherah Foundation is on our website. That's asherahfoundation.org. That's ASHERAH Foundation, as one word, .org. Or you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Heather, have yourself a wonderful weekend. Thank you for taking the time. I appreciate you, like I said, appreciate everything that you're doing. You're doing some phenomenal work, and I know you're just at the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more that's going to happen. It's going to be good for you and the foundation and the recipients of those scholarships and what they turn out doing when they graduate as well. So, see some comments coming in. Appreciate those that are watching. I know I'm seeing the metrics, and I know tons of folks are watching on Twitter as well. They can't comment on Twitter, but they're watching. So loving that engagement and that interaction. And everyone, please enjoy yourself. Have a great day. Take care of yourself.